Good morning. My name is Brandon Cassiano. I am the lead consultant for Cassiano Creative, and I'm going to be overviewing some really important and needed practices when it comes to producing audio for your podcast. And I'm going to show you how to do that if you are creating a video podcast and how to work between two different programs. So, right now I have open one of my video podcast sessions in Premiere Pro. I'm a big Adobe Creative Suite person, so I'm typically just using this. So if you're wanting to make sure that aside from the video quality of your podcast, that you also have really good audio quality and you want to focus more on the audio in a way that Premiere by itself doesn't allow, here's how you do that. So click the audio bit you want to make sure to alter. You're going to right click it and you're going to hit edit clip in Adobe Audition. And we'll give that just a moment to open up. Now keep in mind that when it comes to producing audio for a podcast, depending on how long the podcast audio file is, will affect how long it may take for each of these three steps to be fully applied to the audio file. So now we have the audio bit from that video applied here. It's opened up here in Adobe Audition. So what we want to do first is grab this bar down here and make sure that we lift it up about halfway to see that heat map. Really, really important to make sure we have visuals on that so that we're not missing anything in particular. So once we have the heat map up, what we want to do is first apply noise reduction. So to do that, we want to find a moment in this mass of audio where we have a nice quiet moment where the only thing going into the audio or the microphone is going to be that nat sound, that natural sound, which is essentially the accumulation of your environment. So looks like we have a couple in here. Let's focus a bit more. See, we're going to be aiming for these kind of really dark spots here. Now, depending on the environment that you're in, I was in a studio, so you'll see that the nat sound here isn't super prevalent. There's not a whole lot going on, which is ideal. But just in case there were or was more nat sound, there'd be a lot more purple here. So now that we've allocated this spot here, we want to take the time selection tool up here. It looks like a cursor. Highlight this spot right here. This is going to be the example set for our nat sound, because what noise reduction does is it takes the nat sound, it identifies the nat sound throughout the entirety of your audio file and removes just that sound. So once this is highlighted, you want to right click and hit capture noise print. This can also be done from going to effects, noise reduction and restoration, and capture noise print. Once you've captured the noise print, you want to highlight the entire thing. Make sure this whole bar at the top is white. That's how you know it's going to apply to the entire file. And then you want to go to effects, noise reduction and restoration, and noise reduction process. Since we've already captured the noise print, it's going to show up here. If you hadn't done that yet, this would be blank, but we have it now. So we want to apply it. And because this is a longer audio file, it'll take a little bit to fully process into and apply to the audio file. Give it a couple more seconds. All right, and you'll notice there's a little bit less here than what was before. Let's do a quick change back. So you see there are like these little bits of streaks of purple in here because that's where the nat sound was. We'll reapply that reduction. And they're gone. So the audio reduction has been applied to the entire audio file, which is perfect. From here, what you want to apply is called multi-band compression. And essentially that is where you have, when you have like in here, let's focus in on here a little bit. You see that there are moments where you have high peaks of audio and then really low moments here. So we have a dynamic conversation, or a conversation that's audibly dynamic. So we have really small moments here and some really high peaking moments here. What multi-band compression does is it takes these low peaks and does it the best it can to bring it up to these higher peaks. Tries to find a median between the two levels of audio. And that'll make sure you have an overall more even sound to your podcast, which is also ideal. So to do this, what you want to do is highlight the whole thing. Again, you want to make sure it applies to the entire audio file. Then effects, this time amplitude and compression, and then multiband compressor. Now for Adobe, this is typically set for broadcast, which is ideal because you ultimately want to have your podcast showcasing that nice broadcast radio sound. So that's perfect. So keep it here at broadcast. If it's set for default, just switch it down to broadcast and then apply. Again, longer file, so taking just a little bit to apply to the entire thing. We'll give it a few more seconds, and you'll see these change pretty dynamically up here. You'll see that they have now gotten a lot larger. It's tried to bring these lower bits up to here, and also the higher bits have also gotten a bit taller. So before, after, before, after. So, and it won't be perfect. It's never going to be like a perfect evening out of the levels, but this is essentially to make sure that in post-production, after you've launched the episode, for the most part, there's a pretty even level of volume across the audio file. So that's done. Now the next step, which is also super simple and pretty essential, is normalizing. Normalizing is basically setting that base, not base so much as a setting an audio volume ceiling to your audio file. I'm not sure why that took so long for me to say, but essentially that's going to be ranged in decibels. So over here on the right, you have this, and let me make sure it's seen over here as well, so I'm not losing you guys here. I think may not be. So essentially on the left side of your screen, if you can't see it here, I do apologize. That might be based on Streamlabs that I'm using to record this on, but you'll have a range of decibels on the right side, right next to the edge of the audio file visual. And you're gonna see it's gonna be ranged in decibels, and essentially for normalization, for podcasting, you want it to be set between -3 and -4. Now, if your podcast is already set there, perfect. If not, there are a couple super easy ways to apply this. So with Adobe Audition, there is typically a set of pre-programmed favorites. So what you can do is go to favorites and find normalize to -3. That's perfect. You want to hit that real quick. Again, make sure the entire file is already highlighted. And take a few seconds and you'll see it shift just a little bit. See? Perfect. So it got just a little bit quieter. So before, after, before, after. So currently it's sitting just below -5 about. I'm about having it just a little bit louder, about between -4. So I'm going to take this little nodule here, slightly change it clockwise to bring it up to that more -4 decibel area. Drop it off, let it apply, and perfect. So from here, all you have to do is save it and then X out of Audition. And once you do that, you'll see all the changes you've applied here applied to your your Adobe Premiere Pro session. So all the effects here are done. We'll give it a quick Command S to save it. A few more seconds, again, a longer audio file, so it'll take a hot moment. And perfect. Once it's saved, we'll X out. And then you'll see down here, it's going to disappear. It's going to process in the corner. And now all those effects that we just applied to that audio file have been applied. So now we have a nice crisp
where you're
sound.
fit. Don't just take the first person.
Right.
Unless that first person you feel
And now,
energy
even though
with,
you
and
can
that's
tell
good.
that I was obviously
It's a
on the
hard,
mic more than my guest
especially
was.
if you've never
She's
been in
still
therapy
very
before,
audible.
if you've had negative
You can
experiences.
hear her. You don't have to change your volume level to make sure you get both people on the podcast, and you're good to go. So that is how you apply the 3 essential practices of noise reduction, multiband compression, and normalization to an audio file for a video podcast you are working with in Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition. Please feel free to leave any feedback or comments, and I'll see you for the next Insight session.